1001, return, Penthesilea. Ver 2. See the 21st Epistle, 1.118, and the note. (1002), return, Dion. Ver 3. See the Fasti, Book 2. 1, 461, and the note. (1003), return, son of Atreus. Ver 11. Helen was unfaithful to Menelaus, while Clytemnestra killed Agamemnon. (1004), return, son of Eclis. Ver 13. See the Metamorphoses, Book 8. 1, 317, ind the note. (1005), return, from Philae. Ver 17. See the Epistle of Laodamia to Protesilaus. (1006), return, son of Phares. Ver 19. See the Pontic Epistles, Book 3. L 106, and the note. (1007), return, and in place of Ver 20. See the 111th line of the same elegy, and the note. Also the Tristia, Book verses L 14. 1:38. (1008), return, my skiff. Ver 26. Simba. See the Amores, Book 3. L 6. 1, 4, and the note. (1009), return, another bride. Ver 34. Jason deserted Medea for Creusa. (1010), return, 9 journeys. Ver 37. See the Epistle of Philus to Demophon. (1011), return, 2 treatises. Ver 47. His former books on the art of love. (1012), return, who before had uttered. Ver 49. He alludes to the poet Stesichorus, on whose lips a nightingale was said to have perched and sung, when he was a child. Pliny relates that he wrote a poem, inveighing bitterly against Helen, in which he called her the firebrand of Troy, on which he was visited with blindness by her brothers, Castor and Pollux, and did not recover his sight till he had recanted in his Palinodia, which he composed in her praise. Suedas says that Stesichorus composed 36 books of poems. Helen was born at Therapne, a town of Laconia. (1013), return, your own privileges. Ver 58. Sua seems to mean the privileges sanctioned and conceded by the law, probably to those females who were in the number of the professi. (1014), return, no door. Verse 71. So Horace says, in his address to Lydia, Book I, Ode 25, less frequently do the wanton youths shake your joined windows with many a blow, and no longer deprive thee of sleep, and the door adheres to its threshold. (1015), return, bestrewed with roses. Verse 72. See line 528. In the last book Lucretius speaks of the admirers of damsels anointing their doors with ointment made of sweet marjoram. (1016), return, Hermione. Ver 86. According to Hesiod, Venus was the mother of 3 children by Mars, of whom Hermione was one. 1017, return, may take up again. Ver 96. This is not the proper translation of the passage, but the real meaning cannot be presented with a due regard to decorum. "1018, return, I begin with dressed, ver 101. He plays upon the different meanings of the word cultus, which means either dress or cultivation, according as it is applied to persons or land. "1019, return, a great part. Ver 104. This is a more ungallant remark than we should have expected Ovid to make. "1020, return, of Phoebus. Ver 119. He alludes to the temple of Apollo, on the Palatine Hill, where Augustus and Tiberius resided. "1021, return, and choice shells. Ver 124. He alludes to pearls which grow in the shell of the pearl oyster, and are found in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. "1022, return, by the moles. Ver 126. He alludes to the stupendous moles which the Romans fabricated, as breakwaters, at their various bathing places on the coast of Italy. See the Odes of Horace's Book 3. Ode 1. "1023, return, round features. Ver 139. See the Pontic Epistles, Book 3 EP 3. 1, 15, and the note. "1024, return, figure of the tortoise. Ver 147. Salmasius thinks that the gallerus, or wig of false hair, is alluded to in this passage. Others think that a coif or fillet of network is alluded to. He probably means a mode of dressing the hair in the shape of a lyre, with horns on each side projecting outwards. Mercury, the inventor of the lyre, was born on Mount Cyllene, in Arcadia. "1025, return, the waves. Ver 148. Juvenal mentions a mode of dressing the hair to a great height by rows of false curls. "1026, return, the herbs from Germany. Ver 163. He alludes, probably, to herbs brought from Germany, which were burnt for the purpose of making a soap used in turning the hair of a blonde color. See the Immerse, Book I, L14. 1, 1, and the note. "1027, return, for money. Ver 166. See 1, 45 of the above elegy. "1028, return, the eyes of Hercules. Ver 168. He means that the wigmakers' shops were in the neighborhood of the temple of Hercules Musagetes, in the Flaminian Circus. See the 6th book of the Fasti, 1. 801. "1029, return, gold flounces. Ver 169. Segmenta are probably broad flounces to the dresses inlaid with plates of gold, or gold threads embroidered on them. "1030, return, on one's person. Ver 127. Like our expression, to carry a fortune on one's back. "1031, return, that art said. Ver 175. He refers to the color of the ram with the golden fleece, that bore Hele and Phrixus over the Hellespont. "1032, return, resembles the waves. Ver 177. He evidently alluded to dresses which resemble the surface of the waves, and which we term watered, and which the Romans called undulati, from unda, a wave. Varro makes mention of undulati togae. Some commentators, however, fancy that he alludes here to color, meaning glaucous, or sea green, which Lucretius also calls thalassinus. (1033) Return, Amaryllis. Ver 183. See the last book, 1, 267, and the note. (1034) Return, and waxed. Ver 184. Plautus mentions the Carinarii, who dyed garments of a waxen, or yellow color. (1035) Return, Seriphos. Ver 192. See the Metamorphoses, Book Vu 1, 242, and the note. (1036) Return, Shockingo. Ver 193. See the note to 1, 522, of the first book. (1037) Return, Application of Wax. Ver 199. Wax is certainly used as a cosmetic, but Creta seems to be a preferable reading, as chalk in a powdered state was much used for adding to the fairness of the complexion. Ovid would hardly recommend a cosmetic of so highly injurious a tendency as melted wax. (1038) Return, the eyebrows. Ver 201. We learn from Juvenal that the color of them was heightened by punctures with a needle being filled with soot. (1039) Return, and the little patch. Ver 202. Aluta means skin made soft by means of alum. It is difficult to discover what it means here, whether a patch made of a substance like gold beater's skin, somewhat similar to those used in the days of the Spectator, or a liquid cosmetic, such as Pliny calls calabolepharum, an aid to the eyebrows. He seems to use the word sinceras in its primitive sense, without wax, which recommendation certainly would contradict the common reading, Sarah, in the 199th line. (1040) Return, to mark the eyes. Ver 203. To heighten the color of the eyelashes, ashes, and probably charcoal, were used by the Roman women. Saffron also was used. A black paint, made of pulverized antimony, is used by the women in the East, at the present day, to paint their eyebrows black. It is called cerm, and was also used at ancient Rome. Cydnus was a river of Cilicia. (1041) Return, a little treatise. Ver 205. He alludes to his book, On the Care of the Complexion, of which a fragment remains. (1042) Return, of the Sycypum. Ver 213. The filthy cosmetic called Sycypum was prepared from the wool of those parts of the body where the sheep perspired most. It was much used for embellishing the complexion. Pliny mentions the sheep of Athens as producing the best. It had a strong rank smell. The red color, which was used by the Roman ladies for giving a bloom to the skin, was prepared from a moss called fucus, from which, in time, all kinds of paint received the name of fucus. (1043) Return, of the deer. Ver 215. Pliny speaks highly of the virtues of stag's marrow. It probably occupied much the same position in estimation that bear's grease does at the present day. (1044) Return, Myron. Ver 219. There were two sculptors of this name, one a native of Lycia, the other of Eleuthera. (1045) Return, beautiful statue. Ver 223. He alludes to that of Venus Anadyomene, or rising from the sea, which was made by Praxiteles, and was often copied by the sculptors of Greece and Rome. (1046) Return, pierces her arms to ver 240. See a similar passage in the Immerse. Book I, L14. 1:16. (1047) Return, toilet in the temple. Ver 244. He tells those who have not fine heads of hair to be as careful in admitting any men to see their toilet as the devotees of Bona Dea were to keep away all males from her solemnities. (1048) Return, Sidonian fair. Ver 252. Europa was a Phoenician by birth. (1049) Return, with the clothes. Ver 226. See the Immerse, Book I, L4. 1.48, and the note. (1050) Return, with purple stripes. Ver 269. Commentators are at a loss to know what tingere verges means. Some suggest to wear garments with red vergae, or stripes, while others think that it means to tint the skin with fine lines of a purple color. It is thought by some that vermilion is here alluded to, while others suppose that the juice of the red flowers, or berries of the vaccinium, is meant. (1051) Return, the Pharian fish. Ver 270. The intestines and dung of the crocodile, the Pharian or Egyptian fish, are here referred to. We learn from Pliny that these substances were used by the females at Rome as a cosmetic, to add to the fairness of the complexion, and to take away freckles from the skin. (1052) Return, small pads are suitable. Ver 273. Analectides, or analectrides, the correct reading is doubtful, were pads, or stuffings, of flock, used in cases of high shoulders or prominent shoulder blades. (1053) Return, and let the girth. Ver 274. He alludes to the strophium, which distantly resembled the stays of the present day, and was a girdle, or belt, worn by women round the breast and over the interior tunic or chemise. From an epigram of Martial, it seems to have been usually made of leather. Becker thinks that there was a difference between the fascia and the strophium. (1054) Return, at a distance. Ver 278. One of the very wisest of his suggestions. (1055) Return, Umbrian. Ver 303. The Umbrians were a people of the Marsi, in the north of Italy. They were noted for their courage, and the rusticity of their manners. (1056) Return, the son of Sisyphus. Ver 313. He here alludes to a scandalous story among the ancients, that Ulysses was the son of Anticlea, by Sisyphus the robber, who had carried her off, and not by Laertes, her husband. (1057) Return, the waxed. Ver 314. By the advice of Circe, Ulysses filled the ears of his companions with melted wax, that they might not hear the songs of the sirens. (1058) Return, the measures of the Nile. Ver 318. These airs were sung by Egyptian girls, with voluptuous attitudes, and were much esteemed by the dissolute Romans. These Egyptian singers were, no doubt, the forerunners of the Alma of Egypt at the present day. The Nautch girls and Bayaders of the East Indies are a kindred race. (1059) Return, Plectrum. Ver 319. See the Metamorphoses, Book 2. 1, 601, and the note, also the Epistle of Briseis, 1, 118, and the note. (1060), return, thy mother. Ver 323. Amphion and Zethus were the sons of Jupiter and Antiope. Being carried off by her uncle Lycus, Antiope was entrusted to his wife Dirce. When her sons grew up, they fastened Dirce to wild oxen, by which she was torn to pieces. Amphion was said to have built the walls of Thebes by the sound of his lyre. (1061), return, Arion. Ver 326. See the Fasti, Book 2. 1, 79. (1062), return, the festive Psaltery. Ver 327. Suedas tells us that Nolium, or Nablium, was a name of the Psaltery. Josephus says that it had 12 strings. Strabo remarks that the name was of foreign origin. (1063), return, Callimachus. Ver 329. See the Immerse, Book 2. L4. 1, 19, and the Pontic Epistles, Book 4. EP 16. 1, 32, and the notes of the passages. (1064), return, Poet of Cos, Ver 330. The poet Philetas. He flourished in the time of Philip and Alexander the Great. Anacreon was a lyric poet of Teos, and a great admirer of the juice of the grape. (1065), return, or him, through whom. Ver 332. Some think that he means Menander, from whom Terence borrowed many of his scenes. He probably alludes to the Phormio of Terence, where the old men, Cremes and Demipho, are deceived by Geta, the cunning slave. See the Tristia, Book 2. 1, 359, and 69. (1066), return, Propertius. Ver 333. See the Tristia, Book 2. 1, 465, and the note. (1067), return, Tibullus. Ver 334. See the Immerse, Book 3. El 9. (1068), return, Varro. Ver 335. See the Pontic Epistles, Book 4. EP 16. 1, 21, and the Immerse, Book I, L 15. 1, 21, and the notes to the passages. (1069), return, Lofty Rome. Ver 338. He refers here to the Aeneid of Virgil. (1070), return, Two Sides. Ver 342. Both the males and the females. (1071), return, Composition. Ver 346. He takes to himself the credit of being the inventor of epistolary composition. (1072), return, Masters of Posture. Ver 351. These persons, who were also called ludii, or histriones, required great suppleness of the sides, for the purpose of aptly assuming expressive attitudes, for which reason he calls them artifices laterus. See the first book, 1, 112, and the Tristia, Book 2, 1, 497, and the note. (1073), return, which she must call 4. Ver 356. probably at the game of duodecim surripta, or 12 points, like our backgammon. Sets of 3 tesserae, or dice, were used for throwing. He recommends her to learn the game, and to know on what points to enter when taken up, and what throws to call for. See the last book, 1, 203, and the Tristia, book 2. 1, for 73, and the note. $10.74, return the pieces for $3.57. See the note to 1, 207 in the last book. $10.75, return the warrior 2 for $3.59. He alludes to one of the principal pieces, whose fate depends upon another. $10.76, return let the smooth balls for $3.61. He seems to allude here to a game played by putting marbles, which seems to be the meaning of pily leaves, smooth balls, into a net with the month open, and then taking them out one by one without moving any of the others. $10.77, return, kind of gamed, for $3.63. These two lines do not seem to be connected with the game mentioned in 1, 365, but rather to refer to that mentioned in 1, 355. $10.78, return, a little table receives. For $3.65. This game is mentioned in the Tristia, book 2. 1, 481. It seems to resemble the simple game played by schoolboys on the slate, and known among them as tit-tat-toe. $10.79, return, no trusting. For $3.77. On account of the continued run of bad luck. $10.80, return, flying ball. For $3.80. See the Tristia, book 2. 1, 485-6, and the note. $10.81, return, the Virgin knot, for $3.85. This was near the Campus Martius. See the Fasti, book I1, 464, and the Pontic Epistles, book I AP8. 1:38, and the note. $10.82, return, Etrurian for $3.86. The Tiber flowed through ancient Etruria. $10.83, return, the Virgin knot for $3.88. He alludes to the heat while the sun is passing through the constellation Virgo. $10.84, return, Perietonium. For $3.90. See the Immerse, Book 2. L13. 1:7, and the note. He alludes to the victory of Augustus over Antony and Cleopatra, at Actium, on which the conqueror built the temple of Apollo on the Palatine Hill. $10.85, return, the suitor and the wife. For $3.91. Livia, the wife, and Octavia, the sister of Augustus, are referred to. $10.86, return, his son-in-law. For $3.92. The allusion is to M. Agrippa, the husband of Julia, the daughter of Augustus. After the defeat of the younger Pompey, Augustus presented him with a naval crown. A portico built by Augustus was called by his name. $10.87, return, Memphian heifer. For $3.93. See the Immerse, Book I L8. 1:74. $10.88, return, frequent the three theaters. For $3.94. He probably alludes to the theatres of Pompey, Balbus, and Marcellus, as they are mentioned by Suetonius as the Trina Theatra. (1089) Return, Blowing Wheels. Ver 396. See the Immerse, Book 3. L2. (1090) Return, Thamyras. Ver 399. He was a Thracian poet who challenged the Muses to sing, and, according to Homer, was punished with madness. Diodorus Siculus says that he lost his voice, while the Roman poets state that he lost his sight. Ameleibius was a famous lute player of Athens. (1091) Return, of Companies. Ver 401. See the Pontic Epistles, Book 4. EPI 1. 29. (1092) Return, Poets were. Ver 405. Euripides was the guest of Archelaus king of Macedonia, Anacreon of Polycrates king of Samos, and Pindar and Bacchylides of Hiero king of Sicily. (1093) Return, Place near to thee. Ver 410. According to some accounts, the ashes of Ennius were deposited in the tomb of the Scipios, by the older of his friends Scipio Africanus. (1094) Return, Its Own Priam. Ver 440. Priam and Antenor advised that Helen should be restored to Menelaus. (1095) Return, Liquid Nard. Ver 443. There were two kinds of nard, the foliated and the spike nard. It was much esteemed as a perfume by the Romans. (1096) Return, Narrow Belt. Ver 444. He probably means a girdle that fitted tightly, and caused the toga to set in many creases. See the notes to the Fasti, Book V 1. 675. (1097) Return, and many a ring. Ver 446. Alter et alter. Literally, one and another. (1098) Return, Some Thief. Ver 447. Among its other refinements, Rome seems to have had its swell mob. (1099) Return, Thou, Venus. Ver 451. This temple is referred to in the first book, 1, 81-87. Its vicinity was much frequented by courtesans. (1101) Return, Ye goddesses. Ver 452. He probably alludes to the nymphs whose statues were near the Appian aqueduct, mentioned in the 81st un of the first book. The Delphin editor absolutely thinks that the Prophesi, or courtesans, are themselves alluded to as the Appiades de. (1102) Return, Theseus. Ver 457. Who deserted Ariadne? (1103) Return, of Inachus. Ver 464. Isis, or 2. Co the Metamorphoses, BKI. (1104) Return, to deceive your husbands. Ver 484. It is not improbable that viros here means merely keepers, and not husbands, especially as he alludes to their being without the privilege of the vita, which the matrons wore. (1105) Return, Two Hands. Ver 496. He means that the writing of the lover must be quite erased before she pens her answer on the same tablets. (1106) Return, hence, avant, ver 505. See the Fasti, Book 6. 1, 696. Asterisk laying aside his foils, ver 515. The rudis was a stick, which soldiers and persons exercising used in mimic combat, probably like our foil or single stick. (1107) Return, with Tecmessa, ver 517. She was taken captive by Ajax, and probably had good reason to be sorrowful. (1108) Return, the twig of vine, ver 527. He alludes to the centurions, who had the power of inflicting corporal punishment, from which circumstance their badge of office was a vine sapling. (1109) Return, Nemesis, ver 536. Nemesis was the mistress of Tibullus. See the Immerse, Book 3. L9. Cynthia was the mistress of Propertius and Lycoris of Gallus. (1110) Return, shut your door, ver 587. He addresses the husband, whom he supposes to be wearied with satiety. (1111) Return, then even Thais, ver 604. Thais seems to have been a common name with the courtesans of ancient times. Terence, in his Eunuchus, introduces one of that name, who is pretty much of the free and unrestrained character here depicted. (1112) Return, Lictor's rod, ver 615. This conferred freedom on the slave who was touched with it. See the Fasti, Book 6. 1, 676, and the note, means that freeborn women are worthy to become wives, but libertini, or freedwomen, are only fit to become professi, or courtesans, when they may sin with impunity, so far as the laws are concerned. (1113) Return, broad girth, ver 622. This seems to be the kind of belt mentioned in line 274. (1114) Return, stalk of wetted flax, ver 629. According to the common reading, this will mean that the letter is to be written on blank paper, with a stalk of wetted flax, which writing will afterwards appear, when a black substance is thrown upon it. Heinsius insists that the passage is corrupt, and suggests that alumen nitri is the correct reading, in which case it would mean that alum water is to be used instead of ink. Vesius tells us that alum water, mixed with the juice of the plant Tithymulum, was used for the purposes of secret correspondence. (1115) Return, good goddess, ver 637. The debauched Clodius was detected as being present at these rites, in a female dress. (1116) Return, Befalski, 2, tells, ver 643. He plays upon the double meaning of the words, adultera clavis, which properly signifies a false key. (1117) Return, even though, verse 646. Even though you should have to go to the expense of providing the rich wines of Spain for the purpose. (1118) Return, even she. Verse 663. He alludes to the accommodating lady mentioned in line 641. (1119) Return, has she filled. Verse 666. See his address to Sypassus in the Immerse, Book 2. L8. 1120, return, Lemnian dames. Verse 672. See the introduction to the epistle from Hypsipyle to Jason. 1121, return, Cephaltus. Verse 695. This story is also related in the 7th book of the Metamorphoses. 1122, return, but quinces. Verse 705. These are called Cydonia, from Sidon, city of Crete. 1123, return, Selenian god. Verse 725. Cephalus was said to be the son of Mercury, but, according to one account, which is followed by Ovid in the Metamorphoses, Dionysus was his father. 1124, return, her breath. Verse 746. See the corresponding passage in the Metamorphoses, Book 7. 1, 861. It was the custom for the nearest relative to catch the breath of the dying person in the mouth. 1125, return, with your fingers. Verse 755. Perhaps he means in moderato quantities at a time, and not in whole handfuls. See the note to the first book, 1. 577. 1126, return, and do not first. Verse 757. He seems to IRS two precepts here. First, they are not to eat so much at home as to take away all appetite at the banquet, as that would savor of affectation, and be an act of rudeness to the host. On the other hand, he warns them not to stuff as long as they are able, but rather to leave off with an appetite. The passage, however, is hopelessly corrupt, and is capable of other interpretations. 1127, return, perform their duty. Verse 764. Constant, literally. Will stand together. 1128, return, the swans. Ver 899. He also alludes to them in the Metamorphoses, as drawing the car of Venus, though that office was more generally assigned by the poets to doves.